Well, joining me now from Washington is Peter Brookes, a senior fellow in national security affairs for the Heritage Foundation. Peter, I want to get your overall impression of this hearing, but first, what do we expect from Clapper's report on the Russian hacking during the last election year cycle?
Well, I think what they told us today is pretty much what they've been telling us throughout the fall. I didn't really feel watching the hearing that I learned a lot new, but I follow this stuff pretty closely, so maybe that shouldn't surprise some people. But I think I don't know if we're going to learn that much more. They're supposed to be, they briefing the president today, they're talking to the president-elect tomorrow, and then next week they're promising something unclassified. And of course, there's some things we're not going to get access to, and rightfully so, in my view, such as sources and methods, how we knew about this, and perhaps any real specifics in terms of what the Russians did. So I'm thinking today we may have learned just about as much as we will publicly about this issue.
Right out the gate, Senator McCain asked Director Clapper if WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has put American lives in danger, and Clapper responded that he did. And what sort of position do you think that puts President-elect Donald Trump, who's been tweeting out Assange's view of the election hacking?
Well, that's a political question. I mean, I'm a national security expert, so I really can't say. I am concerned about the information.
I'm sorry, can you speak, though, about how sometimes we do see intelligence through a political lens? It happens. So when that happens, what position does that put the White House?
Well, you shouldn't see intelligence through a political lens. You should see it as the facts as these individuals know it. It's important for our intelligence professionals to speak truth to power. You know, they have a very difficult arena. They have a very difficult job. I have a background in the intelligence community. They're trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle, essentially, with imperfect knowledge. I mean, I often equate it to, trying to do a jigsaw puzzle without knowing exactly what you're going to see on the box top, the box that it came out of. Sometimes you're missing pieces. Sometimes there are pieces from other puzzles in there. So they're operating with imperfect knowledge and trying to support policymakers, and as I once was, with information so that they can take actions to advance and protect American interests. So it's a very challenging thing. We should not have our intelligence politicized. It should be what are the judgments, the assessments of those intelligence professionals make and provide to our policymakers. The politicization of intelligence is a very troubling concept.
But it does happen, though, Peter. It's happened many times over the course of our nation's history where it does take a political turn sometimes, even though lawmakers don't want it to happen that way. I'm curious what you've heard from people in the field. These are assets, men and women who we will never see, who are faceless, nameless. What kind of sense are you hearing from the people out in the intelligence world? Do they feel supported by this new administration? What are their concerns?
Well, I'm not speaking to them, quite frankly. I haven't heard that. I think it's critically important to understand the work on a day-to-day basis that our brave intelligence professionals are doing back here in Washington, D.C., around the United States and overseas, going in harm's way to protect us. And I think, by and large, they are a tremendous asset to the United States and our security arena. The intelligence is our first line of defense. Without that information, we can be left quite vulnerable, as we've seen by some of the tragedies over the years in American history. And we're facing one of the most challenging and difficult national security environments we've faced in many, many years. At this hearing this morning, they talked about Russia, but they also talked about China, North Korea, Iran, and of course the terrorism that we face in the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. So it's critically important that we're supportive of these individuals, but ultimately it's up to policymakers to make decisions about the information that they receive and how that information will be used to, like I said before, to protect and advance American interests.
The intelligence director was asked about the president-elect's plans for changing the intelligence community. I want to play a soundbite for you and have you react to this one.
Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal indicated that the president-elect is considering changes to the intelligence community. Have you at all, as the experts in this field, been engaged in any of these discussions, deliberations, advice?
No, we have not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But I think there's a difference between skepticism and disparagement.
Skepticism and disparagement. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, this is a report that there's going to be a change to the intelligence community. We've not heard anything from the transition team yet. I think it's, very important that, policymakers should be skeptical of information they're getting. Ask that second level of questions, the tertiary level of questions, to make sure that they understand. Once again, Rena, it's very important for viewers to understand that these intelligence professionals are operating often with imperfect knowledge. It's very, very difficult sometimes to put these things together. So it's right for policymakers to be skeptical of any information, whether it comes from the intelligence community or some other, the Defense Department or the Agricultural Department, whatever. That's their job. They have to make those judgments, and that's why they're in those positions of responsibility.
Certainly, and sometimes trying to find that needle in the haystack is not an easy task. Peter Brookes from the Heritage Foundation, thank you for your time, Peter.
Thank you.